Crawl atop me and meet your doom.
Welcome into the first episode of Tapping Vegas, brought to you by Better and Green. I'm here with Bullshito Bobby. Both of us have about a decade in the MMA circle, the UFC world. Me, more personally, I was active wrestler training. Bullshito Bobby, now this guy, if you watched our episode with him, went 5-1. This is a mastermind of UFC. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to it. So I brought him on so he can check me. So what I tell you is going to be complete BS. What Bullshito tells you, do what he says. So, Bobby, welcome in, man. How you doing, man? Welcome back.
Doing well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, buddy. Absolutely. We're not going to be doing every card because I'm sure, Bobby, you can tell the people not every card is worth talking about, right?
No, we usually just try to, for the sake of time, every card that's out, we look at the most competitive fights, the fights with the best betting odds, things of that nature. I mean, yeah, I would love to be able to talk about, every fight from the early prelims up to the main pay-per-view card, but sometimes they're just not really relevant. And, there's a lot of up-and-comers who, nobody really even knows much about from a UFC perspective right now. So we'll just kind of cross that bridge if and when we come to it with those individuals.
Yes, sir. And if you guys want more content from Bobby, head over to bettergreen.com. You guys can get some merch while you're there. I'm rocking the Better and Green hoodie today. Bobby, you ready to dive into these fights?
Yeah, so the first fight we're going to be looking at for this upcoming card, this fight's going to be Mark Madsen versus Jared Gordon. So this is a lightweight fight that is at men's 155 pounds. And Jared Gordon is 19 wins, 6 losses, 1 no contest. Mark Madsen is 12 wins, 1 loss. So Jared Gordon, he's 35 years old. Mark Madsen, 39 years old. Jared Gordon's 5'8". Mark Madsen, 5'7". Both should be weighing in at 155 pounds when they step on the scale. Now, what they rehydrate to once they're in the cage is a different story. I don't have walk-around weight available for them. 68-inch reach for Jared Gordon, 72-inch reach for Mark Madsen. So this is a difficult fight. Jared Gordon, his last fight was a no contest against Bobby Green. There's an accidental clash of heads, a headbutt from Bobby Green left Jared Gordon unconscious. So since he wasn't able to continue, they ruled it the no contest. Mark Madsen was a guy who was on my prospects watch for a really long time. The guy is extremely talented. His nickname's the Olympian, and for good reason, because he is a men's Greco-Roman silver medalist. He represented the Danish national Greco-Roman team. Got the silver medal, 2016 Rio de Janeiro Olympic Games, 2005 in Budapest, Hungary, silver medal, world champion. 2007, 2009, 2015 silver medalist in world championships for the Greco-Roman wrestling. Let's see, what else? Some other, junior European championships. He was a gold medalist. The guy is a very credentialed Greco-Roman wrestler, pinnacle of that sport. And anytime you have, such a strong wrestling background like that in mixed martial arts, it's going to help. It's going to help tremendously, especially to that degree. Guys do not make it to the Olympics. Obviously, for anybody, it's a very, short outcome of being able to happen. And for him to have a silver medal from 2016, that's huge. My concern with Mark Madsen is the fact that he did get into MMA so late. His career has not been very, long. He only has a total of 13 fights. He's 39 years old. So he doesn't have a lot of MMA miles, which helps. But just, by merit of being 39 years old in a sport like that, yes, he's already kind of like a superhuman and, stronger than your average person by being an Olympian. So he could have, some longevity and everything, but it's just kind of concerning to me that he's 39, only has 13 fights. His last fight was November last year. He lost to a rear naked choke submission. round 3. So at least he made it to round 3 in a 3-round fight. And the guy he fought actually missed weight. So I'll give Mark Madsen a little bit of a gimme on that one, because it's always unfortunate when your opponent misses weight. They don't have to cut that extra weight. That gives them more energy. They're not as drained as you, that type of thing. All they have to do is, give the opponent a portion of their purse. But it still sucks. So for this fight, it's really difficult because Jared Gordon, he's got a lot of hype. He's the younger guy, but not by much. It's 35 versus 39. That's not too dramatic. He doesn't have the reach advantage. He's a little bit taller, but, since reach is in favor of Madsen, that's kind of negated. It's just my thing with Jared Gordon is I'm not sold on him. I think the only reason why some people are sold on Jared Gordon is because he beat Paddy Pimblett. And let's be real here. Is that saying something about Jared Gordon, or is that saying something about how bad Paddy Pimblett is? That, even though Paddy Pimblett won the decision, it was widely regarded as, a huge controversy. Jared Gordon got cheated, that type of thing. So even though Paddy won, should have went to Jared. Once again, is that really like an accomplishment, or is that just kind of an indictment of how bad Paddy is? So it's a really difficult fight. I just haven't really seen a lot from Jared Gordon. I do believe that this is kind of Mark Madsen's last shot. There's no shame in losing to Grant Dawson like he did in his last fight last November. Grant Dawson's been a 155 prospect for a good while, up until a few months ago when he himself lost to Bobby Green in like 10 seconds in a flash knockout. So I'm going to go with Mark Madsen. I'm going to check the odds on it, but that's who I'm going to say. Even though he is a great wrestler, I don't think he's going to be able to get a submission against Jared Gordon. I think he's going to just use control time. I think he's going to kind of, just take him down, clinch against the fence, that type of thing, use his grappling in that way. So I'll say Mark Madsen by unanimous decision. Mark Madsen's a plus 180 underdog. Jared Gordon's a minus 218 favorite. Yeah, I just think that's too heavily skewed in favor of Jared Gordon. I think that should be a closer fight. It should be kind of a pick 'em to me, with how kind of, just hard to predict both guys are. I think that those odds are just a little bit too ridiculous in Jared Gordon's favor. And the odds of Madsen winning by decision are at a plus 240. It's a very safe bet, plus 240 for Madsen by decision. And if you just want to put a bet on him just by himself, he's already the underdog. That's plus 180 just for him to win, period, point blank. So what about you, Ben? What do you think?
You covered just about everything that I have. That obviously I'm a little biased towards any fighters that have the wrestling background. So that he's got Madsen's got the wrestling. He's got the 4-inch reach advantage. He is, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, coming off a submission loss, Madsen.
Yes, yep, to Grant Dawson last November.
Yeah, and everything I kept reading was that there are concerns about his gas tank and being 39 years old, and like you said, Gordon's not young himself at 35. At that age, when you have gas tank concerns, I'm worried that he can get caught by Gordon.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I like that. So you think Gordon might actually take it?
I had Gordon.
Okay.
And also the line's moving. It was initially last night when I was looking at it, Madsen was plus 160. So
yeah,
I guess that means there's more money coming in on Gordon, but sometimes that just means to hop on Madsen.
Right. Yeah.
Fade the public.
Yeah, I like I like the gas tank thing, because I hadn't even thought about that, and that's very true. If you got a gas tank issue, it's not the worst place you want to ever be tired in is in the middle of a fight in the octagon. There's unless the other guy is just as gassed and it's heavyweight, you're not going to get a rest.
No.
So that's good. Yeah, I like it. It's fun to me when we have differing opinions on who we think's going to take it. That way we see, once the fights happen, what plays out. So that's great. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Like I said, if you are placing bets this weekend, make sure you listen to Bobby, not me. Bobby's telling you to take the underdog that'll get you a great payout. I'm telling you to take the minus 200 person, like typical chalk me. So don't listen to what I say.
Hey man, anything can happen, man.
That's
Anything.
true.
It's MMA.
That's true. You want me to break into the women's fight?
Yeah, I'll let you start that one off.
Okay, so we got Mackenzie Dern facing off against Jessica Andrade.
Andrade.
Andrade, that's right. So Dern is 13-3. She's 30 years old with a jiu-jitsu background, 63-inch reach, and her last 5 fights she is 3-2. Andrade is 24-12, 32 years old. She's a striker with a 62-inch reach, 2-3. Dern, heavy favorite right now. She's at minus 198 when I was taking these last night. Andrade plus 164. These are the number 10 and number 9 ranked women's fighters in their division. Andrade is on a 3-fight losing streak. And in MMA, I feel like we saw it with Rousey. If you lose that competitive edge, a lot of the times you're just going to see that's it. There's not a lot of people that come back. I think this is a bad match for her too. Everything I'm looking at, I think Dern's going to be the better grappler. She's younger. Everything to me is pointing towards Dern. I'm interested in what you think, Bobby.
Yeah, if I'm, looking at the odds, I have DraftKings in front of me right now. Mackenzie minus 205, Jessica Andrade plus 170.
Moving.
The only thing I have to kind of counter you, I mean, I'm still personally going with Dern. That's who I'm predicting, and that's who I'd put my money on.
Uh-huh.
The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause is just Jessica Andrade for, how much she's been on, like you said, the 3-fight skid, how she's older, that type of thing. She is just so dangerous from a punching perspective. And Mackenzie Dern just has like cardio kickboxing, like jazzercise mom boxing.
Yeah.
And it's just like every fight starts standing. And I do think Mackenzie will be able to get her to the ground. She'll be able to initiate takedowns, initiate the grappling. She does have, as you mentioned, really great Brazilian jiu-jitsu, really great submission skills. I just get worried that if she gets kind of sloppy on those takedown attempts, or she doesn't set them up with some wine mom boxing or something, that she could get caught coming in, because Jessica Andrade is a very hard hitting, female strawweight fighter.
Yeah.
So I don't think she'll catch Mackenzie Dern. I don't see that happening. I think it's going to be Mackenzie Dern probably by either submission or decision. Let me look at the odds on those, because Jessica Andrade, she just got submitted in her last fight, right?
I think
Pretty
so,
sure
yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah.
It was Tatiana Suarez by like a rear naked choke, I think. Yeah, Mackenzie Dern by submission plus 120. If it's a decision, plus 400. You can't really go wrong either way. If I have to pick one, I'd say she'd probably get a sub. It's pretty easy if you do get Andrade down. She's not going to put up much of a fight. She doesn't have very good defensive grappling. She's not good at getting back to her feet, that type of thing.
That's what I'm worried about.
Right. It's just my biggest concern is getting her to the mat, because once you do get her to the mat, you're good. But it's just she's so dangerous before you get engaged and tied up with her, and you close that distance that I worry. But I'm going to say that Mackenzie Dern takes that. And if you want to put, some money on a sub plus 120, that's pretty good value there. So
Dern, what do you think about her, like, defense from her feet, like her striking defense?
I haven't seen it. Like, in terms of, I haven't seen it being there. It doesn't exist. Like, it's pretty much,
okay.
It's pretty bad.
Ben Askren style?
Man, I wouldn't say it's that bad, but like, she definitely is probably right there with them. It's not good. It's not good, man. Unfortunately, women's MMA, there's very few examples other than like Rose Namajunas, Joanna Jędrzejczyk when she was fighting. Those are your good strikers, both offensively and defensively. But yeah, Mackenzie Dern, offensively and defensively, she's not very sound. And unless she's turned a new corner, which it's always hard to turn a new corner at this point in her MMA career. I mean, she's young and she's not that far into it, but old habits die hard type thing. I haven't seen anything in her previous fights that have made me think, if she gets caught clean, that she could survive. That's my biggest problem.
So if you're wanting like a huge payout, I mean, Andrade is already a pretty high plus number. What do you think about
Yeah.
Andrade knockout? Do you have the number in front of you for that?
Let
If
me
she
look it up,
catches
but
Dern.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I can't fault anybody. Like just last fight for her that I predicted that I was wrong on, Jessica Andrade versus Tatiana Suarez. It was pretty much the same thing. I said pretty much the same things about that fight because Suarez is such a strong wrestler,
Mhm.
such a strong grappler. It's pretty much the same prediction for that fight that I had for this one, except, last time I went for Andrade. I said Andrade is going to win and it could be by KO.
Yeah.
So I don't blame anybody for doing it. It's just I wouldn't because, I just personally learned that lesson not that long ago last fight and got burned.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't blame anybody for it because it's a plus 450 by
Ooh.
KO TKO. And she, like
Okay.
you said, she's already in an underdog. So I can't blame anybody for it. And, maybe Suarez is the better grappler than Dern because her takedowns are definitely better. I will say that. Tatiana
Mhm.
Suarez does have way better takedowns, in my humble opinion, than Mackenzie Dern. So, if Mackenzie Dern can't initiate the takedowns or she closes the distance very sloppily because she's not a very good offensive striker, yeah, you're not crazy if you want that huge payout to put the money on Andrade by KO.
I like it. I'd like because
Yeah,
I mean, if you see her winning, you don't think it's gonna go the distance. So why not take the extra juice?
right. If it goes the distance, it's for sure going to Mackenzie Dern.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, Jessica Andrade, if it ever goes to a decision, she's always on the wrong side of the decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was gonna say, like when Joanna Jędrzejczyk, as we just talked about, fought her a few years ago, it was a unanimous decision, and everybody thought Joanna was going to get knocked out, but it was just she was so defensively and offensively sound, she was able to keep Andrade at range pretty much the whole time, and just literally make Andrade chase her around the octagon, never able to close the distance because she used her height and reach, and that's not really something Dern has the ability or the attributes to kind of pull off if she wants to keep this a striking range. It ain't going to work out for her.
No. No. You want to take Lopez Sabatini?
Yeah. So Diego Lopez versus Pat Sabatini. So Diego Lopez, that's another guy that I was got burned on last time I predicted his fight. I went against him, and then I watched the fight, and it was my first time ever watching the guy, and I was blown away. I was blown away in a positive way. He really impressed me, and from that moment on, I seriously said to myself, unless it's a crazy matchup, I'm not, betting against this guy again type thing. So we got Diego Lopez. He's 28 years old. Pat Sabatini, he's 32 years old. Diego Lopez, 22 wins, 6 losses. Pat Sabatini, 18 wins, 4 losses. Diego Lopez, 5'9". Pat Sabatini, 5'7". It's 145 pounds, men's featherweight. Let's see, 72.5-inch reach for Diego. Pat has a 70-inch reach. So the height and reach advantage go to Diego Lopez. And let's see. Yes, I think Diego Lopez on this one. It's a tough fight, but yeah, like I said, he's a very credentialed grappler. Watching his jiu-jitsu was very impressive, and I just think that I bet against Pat Sabatini last time and also lost that because Pat Sabatini pulled off a submission. But I just think Diego Lopez, it's just something that's kind of hard to explain if you haven't watched him. But if you watch Diego Lopez, you're just like, wow, this guy
He's
is
fast.
grappling. Right. He's fast. He's smooth. He's a great submission guy. I'm trying to look up his jujitsu credentials because he is like a world champ in jujitsu. And
His
he just really,
takedowns are so quick. Like his double
yeah.
leg to their back is like lightning.
And that's great. That's huge for a jiu-jitsu guy because the main problem with guys that transition from Brazilian jiu-jitsu like him is, yeah, if the it's like Mackenzie Dern, like we just said about her. Once they get it on the mat, it's great, but they have a lot of difficulty. These BJJ guys and girls getting it to the mat. Like a lot of times they neglect their takedowns because they don't have that wrestling background. Because unfortunately, a lot of jiu-jitsu schools kind of neglect takedowns, or they do something juvenile like start on your knees type thing, whatever the case may be. It's just they struggle there. So for him to already have takedowns along with that world class jujitsu skill, dude's phenomenal. Yeah, his last fight, August of this year, Diego beat Gavin Tucker, triangle armbar, round one. He did lose a tough decision back in June of this year to Movar Evilov, but Movar is like another one of those 145 contenders who's, that division right now, it's kind of a dogfight. And Movar is another one of those guys who's very good at grappling. He's another guy who's, one or two wins away from a title shot. It's a very competitive division right now. There's no shame in losing to somebody like him. So I don't really put too much stock into that being his loss. This is only going to be his third UFC fight, so I'm a little worried about, he doesn't have much UFC experience, but I mean, he has a lot of experience in other promotions. Yeah, Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds, submission round one, Fury Fight Championship, won by punches. He did have a little bit of a skid in 2021 from like August to December of 2021. He dropped 3 fights. One was a split decision. One was a unanimous. The other was a rear naked choke and a grappling at Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds. But other than that, that was his worst skid in his career. He just had that little 3-fight, deal in 2021. I'm not really putting too much stock into that since he was able to recover so well and put together, some good quality wins after that, make it to the UFC type thing. So I like Diego Lopez. Let's look at Pat Sabatini here. So yeah, Pat Sabatini, he beat Almeida. I think it was Lucas Almeida. Let me double check. Yeah, Lucas Almeida, arm triangle choke submission this past June of this year, round 2. What concerns me about him is he has a loss on his record to Damon Jackson, TKO by punches September last year. Damon Jackson is one of those guys in featherweight in the UFC that if you can't beat him, I start to get a little concerned because he's like the gatekeeper. He's not bad. He actually is a good fighter, and gatekeepers have a place. Like they control who has that, access to the top 5, top 10 of the division, whatever. So there's no shame in losing to him, but it just kind of gives me a little bit of an eyebrow raise because if you're as good as you say you are and you lose to Damon Jackson, it kind of makes me wonder how much farther you're going to go type thing,
Yeah.
because, Ilya Taporia, a guy I'm very high on at 145, who's getting the next shot against Alexander Volkanovski this coming February, made, Damon Jackson look like he was an amateur, just absolutely destroyed Damon Jackson, knocked him out cold in the first round, little difficulty. And, look at him. He's fighting for a title here in a few months.
Right.
So it's a little concerning that he got TKO'd by Damon Jackson. But my main thing is I just like Diego Lopez. I just think that, from everything I've seen, he passes that eye test and he's got those grappling credentials. And I think that Pat Sabatini will be good. He will be a guy who probably hangs around, the top 15, top 20 of the division. But I just think that it's kind of Diego Lopez time. And like I said, after I watched his last fight and he proved me wrong and I bet against him, I just don't want to do that again. And the odds right now, Diego Lopez is a plus 102, Pat Sabatini minus 122. Should be a pick 'em to me. So that's another reason why I like Lopez, because he's the underdog and he's been very impressive from an eye test perspective. And plus, putting money on him by submission, it's ridiculous. You get a plus 330 for Diego Lopez to win by sub. Come on now. The man has been competing in combat jiu-jitsu worlds, huge extensive grappling record, already an underdog, plus 330 payout if he wins by sub. He just won his last fight by sub. That's free money at that point, you know? I can't really say anything to really convince myself to kind of go with Pat Sabatini. What about you, Ben?
Eye test, watching them, I was, like you said, pretty impressed with Lopez, and Sabatini didn't do anything to really stand out in my eye. And which is why it's going to be so shocking. I worry about Lopez still, because every submission I was seeing of Sabatini's was off of him getting taken down.
Oh, dude, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
And him heel locking people and making them tap that way. And I think Lopez is going to be absolutely the aggressor. He's so fast that I worry it's going to be a detriment. I worry he's going to go for the quick takedown, and with, you know, only his third UFC fight, I worry that he doesn't have, I don't want to, obviously the dude's fought for a long time, but when you're at this level of competition, such small things like foot placement just matter so much. And if he just comes down and gets caught, I worry that it could be over before it really ever starts, because Sabatini just catches him.
Hey, that's valid, man. That's valid. That's a fair assessment. That is very true. Because you're right. Diego Lopez is going to be the guy initiating that.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's taking Sabatini down, that could definitely put him in a false sense of security, like you just said. One wrong move, he could snatch up his own submission. Yeah. So I wouldn't hate it. Pat Sabatini as himself is a minus 122. But if you put money on him by sub, that's a nice plus 250. I also don't hate, because I don't know too much about Lopez's striking. Don't know too much about Sabatini striking, other than, like I said, I'm a little worried that he got finished by Damon Jackson. But, if you're out there thinking to yourself, these guys are nuts, Diego Lopez has suspect striking, defense, and he's suspect offensively, whatever, from a striking standpoint. If you want to go KO, TKO from Pat Sabatini or a DQ, that's plus 1,100. So, I can't hate you for that. But
the problem with Sabatini, everything I was watching of him, he was like on his back the entire time. Like, dude would be a terrible wrestler.
Yeah, he has no sense of urgency when it comes to getting off his back. And that's another thing that is kind of a detriment to jiu-jitsu guys and girls, once again, not to be
come
sexist.
At me, bro, from the back.
It's
bro.
If you're crawl atop me and meet your doom, like jiu-jitsu teaches you. The problem is, okay, if you don't get the sub, which we just talked about, Sabatini has gotten a lot of subs from being taken down.
Yeah.
Problem is, though, that's not very common once you make it to the UFC. Yeah, when you're making your way up through the amateurs, the regional scene, yeah, if a guy takes you down, it's a lot easier to snatch up like a guillotine. Guillotines work on the regional scene, heel hooks, leg locks, that type of thing. But, man, in the UFC, if you can't get that, and striking, punches, all that adds that extra dimension to it, and you just stay on your back and you're content to ride it out like BJJ individuals are, you're going to lose a decision. You're going to lose a unanimous decision, and you don't get any points scored in your favor, even if you're a great defensive grappler and you're defending every sub, you're trying to, improve your position, all that doesn't matter. It literally comes down to who is the person in top position with the top control. So
I don't see Sabatini winning by decision. I think he has to submit Lopez, or Lopez wins.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. If he's not submitting, it's because he's, like we just said, he's way too comfortable on his back. Yeah. He's way too okay with that. And that has been the downfall of many a jiu-jitsu individual in the UFC. It was great for Tony Ferguson until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Nate Diaz, the king of, fuck that, I won that fight type thing. Guy notorious for being taken down, even though he's a BJJ black belt. But if he couldn't get the sub, dude was winning a unanimous decision and then punching the microphone away at the end. So
yeah. Yeah. All right. You want me to kick off the next one?
Yeah, that's probably the hardest fight on the card to me. So this is going to be interesting.
Well, good, because I love this one. Let's get to some big boys. We
Yeah.
got Tom Aspinall, who's ranked 7th, versus Sergey Pavlovich, who is 3rd. But Pavlovich is minus 102, where Aspinall is minus 118. So it looks like they think Sergey is going to lose. Sergey is 18-1, 31, striker, wrestler, 84-inch reach, 5-0 in his last 5 fights, all knockouts or TKOs. Aspinall's 13-3, 30 years old, jiu-jitsu background, 78-inch. So we're looking at a 6-inch reach advantage for Pavlovich. 4-1 in his last 5. He injured his knee in a loss. One of the things I loved most about researching this match is, did you know that Pavlovich is a champion of Russia in combat kung fu?
I actually didn't see that. That's
he,
amazing.
he is, man. When I was watching it, the two things stuck out to me, and that's why, I mean, I feel very confident about it. I could just be an idiot. I think that Aspinall has pretty poor wrestling defense, and Pavlovich is just overwhelming with his hands. I don't see Aspinall winning this at all. I think Pavlovich is going to destroy him. I mean, he looks like a monster. Like, if you're thinking of these big Russian MMA fighters, yeah, congratulations. You know exactly what Sergey looks like.
Right.
I just see him going in, and Aspinall, he's going to be one of those dudes that he's going to have to get in close to win, with that being at such a disadvantage. Aspinall, he looks kind of like, I mean, he's not stocky, but comparatively, he looks like, he looks small compared to him. I just think Pavlovich is just going to like pummel this guy. I think he probably wins by knockout TKO. I think he's just going to completely overwhelm Aspinall.
Yeah, this to me, it's interesting your perspective because mine for this was, man, this is tough. Like I could, you know, you got two guys who are so similar except for that height reach disadvantage and everything. But here, you know, the two brightest prospects in that men's heavyweight in the UFC going against each other, and it's like both of them have won by first round knockout. You know, extensive win streaks. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's tough. It's really tough because it's like neither one of them has ever really, you know, been challenged. When you don't even make it out of the first round, it's kind of
Yeah.
like you feel invincible, and that's a huge boost to a young fighter's confidence and everything. When you're just making quick work of these individuals in the, you know, highest level of mixed martial arts in the world.
Yeah.
So it's so tough, and I actually think the odds got this one right because it is such a almost like a pick 'em to me. It's just as far as who I'm going to go with, it's tough because I bounce back and forth, and like I said, I see an easy way to victory for either one of these guys. So I think realistically, what's probably going to happen is anytime there's a very hyped matchup between two hot, you know, prospects in like a division that desperately needs new blood injected into it, like men's heavyweight in the UFC,
Uh,
and you have all these high expectations, it's going to be a complete like snooze fest. They're probably just going to stare at each other
lay
since
on
they
each
both
other.
have so many first round finishes. They're going to be terrified to initiate. They're just going to keep it at range, and they're going to cardio kickbox for, you know, 3 rounds or whatever. So I don't know, man. I got to make a decision. I'm going to go Tom Aspinall.
Okay.
And like I said, I hate it because it's just so difficult. And I also hate one of the ways that I got there with making this decision because it's called MMA math. And if you do enough MMA math, you can do shit that's ridiculous. Like, you know, the guys that Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, the 125-pound guy, beat, eventually you can get up to the point where through MMA math, he could take on Brock Lesnar type thing. So I hate to use it, but based off like the quality of opponents that these guys have fought, I think Tom Aspinall has fought the higher quality opponent. And like I said, that's such a cop out because it's MMA math and it's, you know, just because,
It's
you
fair.
know, right, like just because Sergey beat Curtis Blades in the first round by KO TKO, whereas Aspinall got injured against him, doesn't really mean anything. Like, on any given night, anybody can beat anybody type thing. But I just like the fact that Aspinall just beat Tybura. Marcin Tybura has kind of been like he's not been great, but he's been a really solid guy in that division, hanging around the top 15 for years now. Kind of a really good gatekeeper, a good test of how far you can make it in men's heavyweight in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks that we didn't get to see anything from his fight against Curtis Blades because that would have been very telling, but it ended due to that, ACL tear, I believe it was so quick.
Yeah.
I love that Aspinall beat Volkov by a round one submission. Volkov's another guy in that heavyweight division. He's been around for a while. Top guy, always 15-20 in that division. Really tough fight. If you beat him, you got some promise. Sergey Spivak, that guy's been on a tear. That guy's probably next man up in men's heavyweight, 1 or 2 wins away from, title shot contention potentially. Made quick work of him round one back in 2021, September. Andrei Arlovsky, he was old at the time in 2021 when Aspinall beat him. And I'm pretty sure he's retired since then, which he should have retired, probably 8 years ago at this point. But anyway, he made quick work of him, and he was a tough veteran. He was a tough guy who always gave young prospects hell. Never gave them an easy win. If you wanted your place in the division, Arlovsky was going to give you a dogfight. And then I don't really care about who Aspinall beat in 2020 when he was making his debut because those guys aren't even in the UFC anymore. So that's kind of irrelevant. But I just like I just like Aspinall's track record a little bit better than Pavlovich's. Sergey beat Tai Tuivasa, but dude, Tai Tuivasa has been in so many wars now that I'm starting to wonder if he's kind of cracked, like if his chin's been cracked. Derek Lewis, I love Derek Lewis, but beating him's not really what it was 5 years ago. You never know what version of Derek Lewis you're going to get, and he's just so hot and cold and so streaky.
Are you talking about Derek Lewis or his balls?
Dude, both, man. Like, the guy is just, I love the guy, but he just needs to hang it up, man. He just needs to hang it up at this point. Shamil Abdurkarimov in March last year, that's not really what it was. Had a canceled fight in 2021. 2019, he beat Maurice Green. That's a meme. If you know Maurice Green, his nickname's the Crochet Boss. The dude he's a meme. Nobody even knows who Marcelo Golm is. And 2018, this was another reason why I'm not really too high on Sergey. In 2018, Alistair Overeem was his debut. And don't get me wrong, that's a very tough debut for, a guy making his grand entrance into the UFC as a young fighter. It's you're kind of getting screwed over if your first fight's against a legend like Overeem. But he lost by KO TKO in round one. And once again, in 2018, Overeem was one of those guys who is well past his prime. And you could chalk that up to first fight jitters, etc. But it's still a little bit concerning that you get finished so fast by a guy who is kind of the shell of himself. And while he is a great striker, and you don't just lose that knowledge and that kickboxing acumen that he has, if Tom Aspinall is as much of a striker as I think he is, if he can do what Overeem did and overwhelm him and not get gun shy, then I think that's kind of what makes me lean towards Aspinall a little bit more. Is we've already seen Sergey get overwhelmed, and when he's forced to be the nail and not the hammer, it doesn't really end well for him. And we haven't really seen that in the UFC with Aspinall because so far his only loss was a freak injury. So,
yeah, absolutely. You want to get to the main event?
Yeah, so the main event, this is going to be at men's 205 pounds. It's going to be light heavyweight, and we're going to have Yuri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira. So that's going to be the main event of the evening. Yuri Prochazka, 29 wins, 3 losses, 1 no contest, 31 years old, 6'2". Once again, supposed to be weighing in on the scale at 205 pounds. 80-inch reach. Alex Pereira, 8 wins, 2 losses. He's 36, Stands at 6'3", 205 pounds, 79-inch reach. So Pereira has the height, but Prochazka has the reach. This is going to be a good fight. This is really main event worthy. I agree. It's going to be great. I think Jiri Prochazka takes it. It's very close, but there's a few reasons why I think Prochazka takes it. I'm worried about the long layoff Prochazka's had with his injury. He was the light heavyweight champion until he voluntarily gave up the belt as a result of the time off he was going to have with that injury. So he's, facing against Alex Pereira to get his belt back. So he's got that motivation going for him that he never lost the belt through combat. He lost it because he voluntarily gave it up. Alex Pereira, my main things against him, I keep saying it, and sometimes he proves me wrong. Sometimes I'm right. But my main thing is he just does not have MMA experience. This is going to be his 11th fight in mixed martial arts, not even just the UFC. 11 fights overall in mixed martial arts. We already know and have said enough about how great of a kickboxer he is, but I'm just worried that Jiri Prochazka has so much more MMA experience. He's a great striker. I don't know if he's necessarily as good and as sound, especially from a defensive standpoint, as Alex Pereira. He is very wild. He does have a hands-down style. He's very, awkward, different angles, the MMA angles meme type thing. He comes at you with some unorthodox stuff. He'll throw a spinning back fist, spinning elbows, just crazy strikes from different unexpected placement areas. Alex Pereira, very fundamental kickboxer, very sound technically, offensively and defensively. Has a pretty much set, hey, I'm going to walk forward, I'm going to calf kick, I'm going to, kick the thigh, get into punching range, try to, left hook. That's his money maker is, his hooks. That's what he knocks people out with. That's where he gets the nickname Stone Hands from. Once he gets the hooks on people, a lot of people can't take it. Jiri Prochazka, because he is so wild, is prone to getting hit. Like I said, he doesn't, at least the last time we saw him fight and in previous fights, has not been the most sound person defensively. Has been, KO'd before. But I just think Jiri Prochazka is going to take it. He just has the experience edge. He has the reach edge. The striking, if he cleans up his striking, is a little bit more defensively sound. He's good because offensively he's already fine. And I think the X factor is kind of good. It's going to be the grappling. Jiri Prochazka's last fight was ironically enough against Glover Teixeira for that light heavyweight championship. That's when Jiri won the belt. And Glover Teixeira is Alex Pereira's mentor. He's the guy who's been training Alex Pereira for a while now. They're best friends. They hang out. He's been getting him ready to fight Jiri. So he does have experience of, a guy who just a guy who just lost to Jiri Prochazka not that long ago, is coaching him and has some insight on, Jiri's habits, his tells, etc. But I don't think that's going to be enough unless he's really been working his grappling, which I was not impressed by Alex Pereira's grappling against Jan Blachowicz, which is Pereira's most recent fight. And when you have Jan Blachowicz holding you down and being able to kind of control you with his grappling at will, and Jan Blachowicz isn't really a guy who's, a guy with a great wrestling background or, some grappling credentials, I'm a little worried that it's going to be pretty easy for Jiri to kind of, if it comes down to grappling, Jiri has the edge. Jan Blachowicz did lose that fight to Alex Pereira, but if you know anything about Jan Blachowicz, you have to ask yourself, was it more of Jan beating himself or Alex beating Jan? And I lean towards Jan kind of beat himself in that fight because, like I said, first 2 rounds, he had a lot of good top control. He was being a wet blanket on Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira didn't really have an answer for it. He kind of just let himself be held against the cage, didn't really have any type of opportunities to break free, get back to his feet, circle out, that type of thing. Jiri Prochazka just beat Glover Teixeira by a rear naked choke. Glover has the better grappling, better, credentials in that regard, and is mentoring Pereira. But like I said, I haven't really seen that translate for Pereira. And if Jiri sets up the finish like he did with Glover with his striking, the sub's going to be there. He'll be able to take a sub, find a sub, and as long as his striking is setting it up, he'll find it. So I'm going with Jiri Prochazka. I think he's going to win. Let me check out the odds on that to kind of tell you how I think he's going to win, because I do not think it will go the distance in a 5-round fight. Since this is the main event, it will be 5 rounds potentially for a total of 25 minutes. And we have Prochaska's plus 105, Pereira's minus 125. If you want Prochaska by KO, TKO, that's plus 180. A sub is plus 800. So Jiri by plus 800 is not as outlandish as I would have thought. If you want Pereira by KO, TKO, plus 110. If you want Pereira by sub, it's plus 2,000. And then, yeah, we're just not even going to talk about decision because I don't see it going that direction. But I would put my money on Jiri. He's already the underdog. And then I'd be cheeky, and I'd do a plus 800. I like those odds, and I'd say it's a good chance he could get a sub, because Jiri's the type of guy, if he can find it and it presents itself as a result of his striking setting it up, just like he did with Glover, I think he'd take it with Alex. And like I said, for all the talk of Glover mentoring and trying to pass that grappling knowledge on to Alex, we can only talk about it so much. I got to see it. And his last fight was against Jan Blachowicz, Alex Pereira's was. And I just wasn't impressed with his defensive grappling and his ability to try to get himself out of situations.
Well, I need to do better research next time then, because I liked Pereira, and a lot of that was his wins. Like, he has wins over the previous and current champ. So he beat in Strickland. He beat Adesanya. You were saying how like Jiri could be kind of unconventional and maybe has some defensive mishaps. Well, that's kind of how we saw Strickland get knocked out. Is he wasn't protected. He didn't keep his hands up, and Pereira caught him. I think Pereira, he doesn't have as much experience, but I think he fights safe. He hasn't really had the fight where he gets caught and it kind of like changes him, and then he either gets real boring or he starts getting real crazy with it. And the layoff for Jiri, it's the last time we fought was June 22nd, 2022. That's a long time. That worries me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not thinking you're crazy. These fights, these last few fights are so competitive and they're so close. I could see going either way. And yeah, I don't hate Pereira by KO, TKO at plus 110. I couldn't fault anybody for doing that. As great as the odds are, like I said, it's a little bit risky, and you'd be a bit of a maverick to go for plus 2,000 on him getting a sub, because I just have not been impressed by the man's grappling, and not even just to beat a dead horse, but with Jan Blachowicz, but in his 2 fights with Israel Adesanya from an MMA perspective, it looked like 2 drunk uncles at a barbecue on both of their ends when it came to the grappling. It was like, well, man, we're kind of so evenly matched in the striking. Let's see what it looks like on the mat. And it's like you both are not looking that great, So
no, yeah, I don't see him. He's not choking him out. He's not submitting him. There's no chance.
Right. So, yeah, I just don't think it'd be a decision. And like I said, I don't hate putting some money on Pereira by KO, TKO. It's tough, man. But yeah, I'm just gonna stick with Jiri. And yeah, I'll say sub. Like I said, I'll be cheeky, say that he gets a sub. He does have a good chin for as reckless as he is. When he fought Dominic Reyes, he did get pretty close. It looked like one of those situations where he kind of got knocked out and the next punch woke him up type thing. And I did like his recovery in that aspect. I did like how he was able to kind of battle through that adversity and knock out Reyes himself shortly thereafter. So, yeah, I don't blame anybody for going either way. Like I said, these last two fights, Aspinall and Sergey and Yuri and Alex are so competitive. You could go either way, and I wouldn't be surprised. And I could be totally off base myself, but yeah, those are just kind of my feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. If you had to do like a Hail Mary play or a haymaker play, would you rather do Yuri sub or Andrade knockout?
I'd probably rather do Andrade knockout.
Andrade
I
knockout.
think I'd rather do that just because, like I said, of how bad Mackenzie Dern's striking is offensively and defensively. And because, like I've said, and Jessica Andrade just has that power that is very rare in women's mixed martial arts. And if you're not going up against somebody in your training that has that power, it really takes you by surprise. And you do not want your first time getting hit with power like that to be against somebody like Jessica Andrade. You would have hoped that you would have found somebody in your sparring to kind of prepare you for that. And I just don't think Mackenzie Dern, if she does get caught clean, would be able to survive. And I just doubt that she's ever sparred, unless she's sparring with men, ever really kind of came across anybody that could have that power that Andrade does.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, everybody, thank you for joining us for the first episode of Tapping Vegas. Hopefully you guys got some good information from this. We'll be doing these with the cards we think are worth talking about. So, Bobby, thanks for joining me, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace, guys.
Peace.
You better start listening to the Better in Green podcast. You will not regret it. Trust me, trust me, trust me. And hey, I'm Dean Blandino.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Better in Green, eh? To Better in Green, eh? To Better in Green, eh? Listen in and cash out. That's what it's all about. Come on, let's make cash now. We always on spot and we cover all spot from the bottom to the top. Hey, shout out to Ethan, shout out to Wyatt, shout out to Ben. Welcome, welcome to our podcast. Better in Green.